Yeah. You have entered the Chronic Rabbit Hole. This is Storytime with E.T.C. episode 22, featuring Lone Wolf Poetic.
Forgive me, Father, for you have sinned. Let me speak honestly, because honestly, we both know you won't confess your sins to me. No way. No way. But their deaths are yours to pay.
Welcome back to Storytime with E.T.C. We're at episode 22. Today, Alana and I are diving deep into the world of spoken word, truth, and raw emotion with a very special guest from Saskatchewan, Canada. Give it up for Lone Wolf Poetics.
He's a creative writer, a spoken word poet, and someone who doesn't shy away from powerful, painful, and uncomfortable truths, delivered in a way that makes you feel and reflect.
So today we're going to talk about his inspirations, his culture, his artistry, and trust us, you don't want to miss the special announcement he's bringing exclusively to this interview.
So let's get into it. Lone Wolf, thank you so much for being here with us. Let's start light. Can you tell us a little about yourself, your background, and where the name Lone Wolf Poetics came from?
Yeah, so um basically I'm from Canada. I'm from the middle of Canada, if you're not familiar, Saskatchewan. I actually just recently moved from Regina to Saskatoon, so from the capital to one of the other major cities here. Um
Okay.
yeah, I started writing, really writing 2005-ish, so I think I would have been just starting grade nine.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
I've always had, so before that, it was funny. I always had the want to write, I always had the like ideas and all that, but I actually have ADHD, and one of the ways my ADHD used to really affect me was it made writing extremely hard.
Right, I
For
bet.
me, to the point where I would actually take lesser grades so I could do a public like speaking as a presentation, so I didn't have to write. So I was
Really?
really good at public speaking. And then once I got diagnosed and medicated,
Mhm.
and the medication takes about 2, 3 years to actually kick in. So I got diagnosed and medicated when I was in grade or when I was 11 years old. So then by the
Okay.
time I hit high school, it had actually really kicked in, really started to help. And then from there, um, I had entered two kind of school age poetry contests. There was one in Canada, in the US,
Oh,
got
wow.
published in that. And then shortly after, got published in another one that was international. I think it was 40 plus countries worldwide. Yeah, I got
Impressive.
published
Very
in that
cool, very impressive.
within the school year of grade nine.
Oh, big time, eh?
Yeah. And then just started writing, just kind of kept going. Then I actually in so I graduated 2010, and then in 2016 I actually went
Oh, wow.
to
Same year as me, eh?
yeah, actually went to a I call it like a feeder college. I don't know how else to explain it. So basically, usually kids would come out of high school, go to this feeder college for a couple of years, and then go on to like the university,
Right. Yep.
um, in Saskatchewan or whatever. But they actually have one of, I think it's the best writing programs in Saskatchewan, and I think it's one of, if not the best writing program in the country. So I went there for 2 years, and my writing just took off really there. That was such a good year for my like growth and development as a
Amazing.
writer.
Mhm.
And then, yeah, I started my channel actually just kind of on a whim.
Just on a whim,
Um,
eh?
on in 2019 during COVID, kind of been
Okay,
going
so COVID kind of
2020,
helped you have that time to
2019,
really put it
2020.
out.
Yeah, it's kind of a funny story actually,
Let's hear
or
it.
how it now it started. So I've always loved having my pieces, my poetry, like sharing my poetry. I know some people are very private with their writing, and that's totally cool. But for me, I always want feedback. I'm always trying to share it. So a girlfriend, so girl space friend,
Right.
Okay,
um,
yes.
that has always been a big fan of my writing. I was reading one of my pieces that I had actually wrote while I was at that college, and kind of texted me back because like I love your writing, but this one sucks.
This one sucks. So honest.
Compared to like what your other level is, like where your writing level usually is. This one just doesn't seem like
Up
up
to
to
par.
par. And it was like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's because you're not reading it right, and that's not your fault. Because there's no way on paper that you can know how it actually is supposed to be read.
Hmm.
So
Right.
she's like, well, how do you do it? Like, how are you actually supposed to read it? So like, it was kind of October 31st, so it was Halloween. And I was like, I was gonna have fun and make a video on how to do it. So the piece is called "A College Where Spirits Dwell."
Right.
But the way you're
Hmm.
reading it on paper, I think the first couple lines are bells playing in the dead of night. Okay, bells playing. Okay, bells clanging in the dead of night, severing silence, soliciting sudden flailing, which sounds cool. But if you, when I wrote it, the way I actually wrote it was to be recited like this: is bells clanging in the dead of night, severing silence, soliciting sudden flailing. All is not
Okay.
well in a college where fear well,
Okay.
which makes it a lot better,
Because
a
you're
lot more
adding that
impactful.
punctuation, that impactful prose to the way that you're speaking so that it gives more of an emotional response than just the melody of what the poetry would be.
Yeah, and again, there's no way to for that to come across,
Hmm.
Hmm.
which is one of the reasons I went to spoken word poetry because a lot of my writing is not maybe not to that extreme, but
Right.
it is that I think the deliverance of poetry in all poetry, not just mine, is extremely important. I think poetry is something that's meant to be acted. It's not
Yeah.
Hmm.
necessarily meant to be read.
It's an expression.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I like
And
how you
So,
say that it was meant to be acted, not just read.
And when we're seeing all your performances away, you are acting it out, and every word is landing really well with the spoken word,
yeah,
and it's really cool because everything you're talking about right here are in line with a lot of these questions that we have. So
Hmm.
I know we're in the same wavelength. So let's kind of talk about your origin story then. So you've built a growing fan base you call the Wolf Pack, and even your dogs Chewy and Loki feel like they're part of the brand. So how do they fit into your world and your writing?
but all the time destructively.
Destructively.
Um, they're both very cuddly in their own way. I mean, obviously, Chewie's a husky, so he gets hot.
Mm.
He has all
Yeah.
the flu. Um,
Aw.
but they're very pack-oriented dogs by breed. Chewie's a husky, and Loki is a Belgian Malinois. So
Adorable.
by breed, they're very people. They love their people.
Hmm.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
usually, I have a tendency for some reason to like to write lying down on the floor, which of course, if you have dogs, that means hey.
Yeah, no kidding. That's
Um,
cool. Cool image.
and they like to take my paper away from me.
That's true.
If
Dog
I
ate your
can't
homework.
don't have paper, I have to play. But no, Chewie's actually been in one of my videos.
Oh, which
Okay,
one?
Um,
cool.
I think it was called what the hell was it called? This Landmine? Yeah, Landmine.
Land
Landmine.
of Mine.
And I actually just got it in my backyard of the house I was living at the time. And you see him at the beginning, and then he makes a little cameo again, wanting attention. Um, but it was just kind of I want to do something different.
I love it.
Love that. You said that your message defines fears and grinds gears. That's pretty powerful. Can you walk us through that phrase and what it means to you on a personal and artistic level?
Yeah, so I've always kind of written, even when I was again like in high school and that, I've always had that want to write. and the desire to write about things that are hard to talk about, um, whether that's externally or just things that I'm having a hard time with.
Hmm.
And I think in a little ways it kind of harkens back to before, um, I was diagnosed with ADHD and that, and where I wouldn't write. Writing was
Mhm.
very hard. So I think that's a little bit of the fear, but
Right.
also it's just that fear of, I talk about racism, I talk about religion, I talk about
Yep.
essay, I talk about, actually last night I just saw a video called femicide, which is
Oh,
the
wow.
international murder of women and girls strictly because they're feminine, they're female.
Mhm.
Um,
Rough.
so the
Touchy
fear of
subjects.
kind of, yeah, so just kind of the fear of putting, you know, attacking those topics and then to
Yeah.
grinding gears because let's face it, in today's world, speaking out is rebellious.
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. And we appreciate your rebelliousness because it's not in a just necessarily trying to take things down. It's trying to open the conversation. And like you said, this is a bit of therapy as well for you when you're doing this to get out your own thoughts and feelings. And you really can feel that when you're doing your spoken word and the really quick rap that we also saw
Mhm.
too, which we'll bring up as well. So that's really cool. We're going to jump into your craft now. You did mention that you started uploading on YouTube about 4 years ago because of like the pandemic and all that too. So I don't think this question necessarily is needed. So I'm going to let Alana kind of the question was like, what made you start the YouTube 4 years ago? What sparked your creativity leap into sharing your poetry publicly?
But
But
you
you,
told
you
us
kind of
that.
already alluded to that.
Yeah.
So, this next question that we have that's around your craft. Many of your pieces carry themes rooted in trauma, identity, and resilience. Was your Indigenous background part of what inspired you to use spoken word poetry as your medium?
Um, yes, but not necessarily, maybe not in the way you're thinking. So there is
Okay.
Not
a
directly.
spoken word, there's a video, maybe I'll send you the link after maybe.
Please do.
Um, her name is Tara Tutusis, I believe. I know I don't think he's posted anymore, but the video I saw was a spoken word poetry that she had done, poem that she had done called because I am an Indian, being First
Oh,
Nation,
Mhm.
right.
and it's kind of talking about all the struggles that from her kind of point of view as a Indigenous female
Hmm.
Mhm.
and just the Indigenous person in general that we face, and I really like how he switched it at the very end because he kind of says all the way through, all the way through is like I'm having these struggles because I am indigenous, because I am an Indian, because I am indigenous, and then at the end he switches it. It's like I don't know who I am or who I want to be because I was trying to meet your standards of being indigenous.
Right.
Right.
Wow. Okay.
Very
Um,
powerful.
yeah, so it was kind of that one was kind of like that was
No
kind of the
kidding.
first one that I saw. I was like, hey, I love writing. That seems like something I can do
Cool.
Mhm.
by writing. So yes, but not maybe in the traditional way that you would think.
Yes, but not directly. It was through
Yeah,
community that brought you to through the community that you share within your Indigenous background that really brought out the
yeah,
emotions to use that as your medium. And that's a really cool way to then be able to share within your community on a medium that is so multi what was the word I was looking for? Multi pivoted, not pivoted. There's a word there that I was looking for.
Faceted.
Faceted. Thank
You're
you,
welcome.
where you're able to express so many different genres of conversation, as well as being able to share within your own community in a way that is so impactful to everyone.
yeah.
Yeah, and please give us the link to that because that sounds like a very powerful poetry there. So you do speak about a lot of triggering topics like
Hmm.
alcoholism, terrorism, gun violence, but you deliver them in a soft, digestible way. Is that intentional? And what's your process in finding that balance?
Um, it's kind of funny that you say that because I actually don't think my delivery is that gentle.
Oh, okay.
There's ways I could be a lot more gentle. But I think there's really only been a couple videos where where in the video itself, I add in elements, whether it's effects, whether it's my wardrobe or
Yep.
both,
Hmm.
where it kind of lightens the hit a little bit.
Mhm.
But for the most part, I think I just like to, especially not so much when I'm writing. When I'm writing, I very much just let myself write.
Yeah.
Um, and that cost me a couple $100 in jeans. Um, yeah. So yeah, I don't censor myself or anything when I write. I just let myself write. And then when it comes time to do the video, I'm always trying to see like what would actually be the most impact that
Mhm.
I can do, knowing again that I actually don't have a license. So that's why I do a lot of my stuff in my house or in my room.
Right.
Um and you know, deeply.
It's very
Um,
cool.
but yeah.
I see what you mean because I like what you said where you were mentioning that a lot of your delivery isn't always the most gentle because you do let it just come from your heart.
Yeah.
And I definitely feel that as well because of your prose of your delivery that I've noticed in your poetry can be very staccato in a way if
Yep.
you're thinking on music. So it does really it feels like a heartbeat often but like a rapid heartbeat. And I think that
Yep.
is something that I've seen through the about 4 or 5 videos that we've watched of you is having that staccato heartbeat rhythm within your poetry. Is that something that you do deliberately?
Um, not necessarily deliberately, but I do definitely, yeah, I wouldn't say I do it deliberately, but I am conscious of it. And again, I think that actually does come from being indigenous and just having that indigenous, the
It
idea
feels
of
like
that
a drum
the
beat.
drum beat.
No
Yeah.
kidding, right?
Because I myself I grew up in Duncan. I'm not First Nations at all, but I grew up learning Hulkaminam and stuff because the Cowichan
Okay.
tribes is very strong in their heritage on
Yep.
Vancouver Island.
Yeah.
So we grew up learning First Nation studies, Hulkaminam.
Hmm.
We would go to the big house and like witness a lot of the dances and like learn how to weave and things like that, which was really cool growing up.
Yeah.
I have to say that was like my favorite class was anytime we got to go to I believe it's the longhouse or the big
Yeah.
house. So that was some of my favorite stuff in school. And that was something that I really felt in your poetry was that drum beat, that heartbeat that was really playing through. Another question we have for you, you have spoken Cree in some of your poetry and some of your pieces, and you've used words like, and forgive me if I mess this up, but it's kitamahawu, which means to warn. What
Yep.
role does language play in your storytelling?
Um,
Good job, man.
yeah, so it's I'm gonna look it up quick. I don't
Of
remember.
course.
No worries.
And if you could correct me on how to say that, that would be
Yeah.
awesome as well. I tried.
Well, that's a good try. Yeah, so it's Kitama Will. So
Okay.
kit as in like a drum kit.
Yep.
Yeah.
Ama, I always think of like Yamaha,
Oh,
Okay,
Kedama.
Kitama,
and then will like I will do it
Kitama
or I
will.
will
Kedama
do it.
well.
Yeah,
Kitama will.
Okay.
Very cool. Thank
Love
you
it.
for that.
yeah. So those two. So I have two. I have Will and
I love your background too, eh?
uh, mm, and so the other one is Nitawamon PQA. So those two, I obviously I talk about indigenous issues a lot, and I just wanted to kind of take it in a different way. So I thought maybe, and again, like I have no language. Being
Yeah.
Cree, I have none of my language.
Hmm.
So it was kind of fun just to be able to experiment and do a lot of research. I think, for Commonwealth, it took me, the actual writing, I think only took me 15 minutes, but it was, I think, 3.5 hours worth of writing.
Wow,
Like
eh?
most of that trying to figure out what the words are, and then how to piece them together
Hmm.
and make sure I'm, you know, using the right words, um,
Absolutely.
getting pronunciations and that. It's a Waymon PQ way. was a little bit faster because obviously I already had all those resources figured out, but still kind of had to do the same process. But I do also have one or a couple where, I'm speaking Spanish or French.
Okay.
And I think it's just taken from the inspiration, the
Mhm.
one I have where I speak Spanish, I actually wrote about a excursion I did when I was in Mexico. We went to Chichen Itza, me and my mom.
Oh, cool.
Very cool.
And on the way back, we had actually stopped at a traditional Mayan town that I cannot say the name of. Um, and they had this pretty old, again, traditional, but Gothic looking church. And that was kind of my
Mm-hmm.
inspiration. So I wanted to keep the Spanish, again, just as a nod to the culture and everything. And, the French, again, is just the inspiration of kind of what I'm talking about. That, again, just doing cultures that aren't mine, just kind of give that nod and a little bit of,
Give it
um,
justice.
yeah, just on a little kind of respect or whatever. Yeah.
And you have such a sign of respect in everything you do. And I think that's why it's so digestible for me. It's really art coming out. It's not propaganda that you're trying to just push onto people. It's really your
Mm-hmm.
real thoughts, and you're ready to die with your thoughts here. And on top of the culture, something that I noticed in some of your videos is you had this mask that had the horns. And I didn't
Yep.
know if that was like an actual thing from your culture that you could explain what that represents.
No, so it's actually funny. There's a touring, I guess you would call it a circus, paranormal circ, if you're familiar with that. It's
No, I
actually
haven't heard
maps.
of
I
that.
got it from there.
Oh, cool. Okay, right
That's
on.
really
That
Um,
cool.
looks badass.
but yeah, so the first mask, I have like a doctor's mask, like a Italian like doctor's mask.
Mm-hmm.
And I got that one for Halloween because I had done a video, I think it was for my 1 year anniversary called Il Dottore, which is the doctor. And kind of centered around. So the theme with that one is there's an island just outside of uh, is it Venice that has yeah Venice that has all the water
Mhm.
called Poveria Island, and it's extremely supposed to be extremely haunted to the point where the government will not allow anyone to go there.
Oh, oh
Like
wow.
Oh, wow.
it's a federal offense.
Jeez, I never heard of something like that.
And it's they use it, so there's a mental hospital there. They've done capital executions. Um, there's a part of the island that was said to be built from the ashes of plague victims. Like the
Wow.
ground apparently in Poveglia is not dirt, it's ash, it's human ash.
Jeez, eh?
That's crazy.
So I kind of took that idea, um, and plus I've just always been a fan of paranormal. So I took that
Nice.
idea and I was like, how can I modernize it to be something today? I was like, well, I'm going to do it about technology and, our over reliance on technology.
Mm-hmm.
Got that
Um,
right.
and kind of spin it that way. So I was like, well, kind of need a doctor's mask for that.
Well, that's cool because
Um,
you also said you're like doing kind of skits when you're performing these too. So
yeah,
embodying the costume and all that really helps push it out, the message that you're putting.
yeah. I also remember that's actually one of my hardest videos I've ever had to shoot
Yeah.
because so I had the mask on, so I couldn't actually. So when I shoot my videos, I always have the pros taped to the wall in front of me
Right.
or
Mm-hmm.
on my computer screen or whatever, just because I suck at remembering.
For sure.
So one, I couldn't really see the paper that well because how they have the eye, they have fabric over the eyes,
Yeah.
like little grid mask. And then I
Mm-hmm.
had a COVID like hood mask that like went up.
Right.
So it goes from here down. So you couldn't actually see anything. All you saw was the mask. And yeah, trying to breathe and speak and emote through that was, and also enunciate through that was sound.
Difficult.
It
Yeah, I
kept getting
bet.
stuck in my mouth.
Well,
But I also think
okay.
that's one of my favorite videos.
Amazing then. So to bring it into something meaningful, what does truth and reconciliation mean to you? Not just as a poet, but as a human being living in today's Canada.
Oh man. Yeah, it's kind of straight up. I don't know half of my family.
Don't know half of your family. Wow.
Wow.
Because they they've lived on reserve my whole life, and I don't really go out
Right.
there that much. It's just kind of two separate things. So I can, be out with like my mom, and we'll run into someone who'll start talking. I'll be like, "Hey, who's that?" Like, after, but like, "Oh, that's your uncle or that's your cousin." I was like,
Oh, wow.
"You could have told me that was the president."
Wow.
So,
I'm,
Yeah.
wow, Tanner.
um, definitely that. And then as a poet, I think it's just, again, just wanting to speak out about injustice and kind of the whole idea of give the voice to not necessarily to the voiceless, but
Mhm.
to the muted voices, I guess.
Wow. That really, what an emotional response, and you could really feel it in there and really, I don't know what it's like to not be able to see my family, so I don't know
Mhm.
that feeling, so I can only sympathize for what you're going through there.
Absolutely.
And very powerful, and I can see why you need to talk about it.
Let's get into some of your personal work and some of your announcements. You have a piece called In Love with the Devil, where you spit 379 words in under a minute and a half, which is very impressive. What was the inspiration behind that track?
So it was actually a girl I was, I guess, tasting, not really seeing. Um, and it was actually funny because her middle name actually literally translated to devil.
That's
I think it was
insane.
Lyco or Lico,
Lyco? Yeah,
Lyco
Lyco.
or Lico or something like
Yeah.
that. And I've always been able to rap fast. So she's like, "Oh, I don't think you can make a love song or like a love poem about me. I'm the devil, da da da."
All
And I was like,
right.
"Yeah, you're right. I want to though." And it was like, I was wondering like how fast I can actually go with that. And yeah.
Very cool. So that was your like a challenge to yourself to be able to write a love song about a devil, but you could also do it in rap god speeds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool. I love self challenges like that.
Do you also have other songs that you're rapping in, or is that one of your only ones?
Um, there's that one. There's one called Warriora, which is a combination of warrior and aura.
Oh, cool.
I think I'm actually faster a little bit in Warriora, but I think I rap cleaner in Love with the Devil. And then I'll do it for parts of my other poems, and then
Kind of weave it in.
it's yeah, of
Mhm.
my other like rap ones. But Warriora and In Love with the Devil are the only two where I'm doing like all flat out.
Right on
Right
then.
on.
And we had another question, but you kind of already allured to, like we heard the devil in the poem refers to your ex Liko, which translated to devil in Polish. That's so layered. And was this cathartic to write, or did it stir up more than it actually resolved?
I wouldn't say it was cathartic. I think it was just, again, just more of a kind of a flat out challenge,
Hmm.
more than anything. Just like, hey, I did that.
That's
Good then.
very cool. I love that. You've got a new release called Demon in the Mind. Can you tell us what that message that's behind that one?
Yeah. So, uh, I guess last year I had, or maybe it was, yeah, last year I think it was. I had started this series called, what was it called? Yeah, it was called, the War Internal Saga. So like Internal War. I was kind of going back and forth between kind of a similar message. Um, but again, just kind of got into like a stalemate with that piece. So Devil in My Mind was actually supposed to be the end of that kind of series, that saga.
Oh, okay.
It just
Okay.
kind of, then I just had all these other pieces that kind of felt like they needed to come out before, to the point where it's like, I think over a year now since that one came out. Oh, seven. Okay, yeah, so 7 months. So it was like, well, the saga's kind of been dead for 7 months. So I'm gonna recycle, but I really like that piece. I recycled it and kind of the original idea. just kind of confronting, your inner demons and all those voices, internal
Yeah.
voices that just say you can't and or you shouldn't and all that, and just kind of saying it doesn't really matter. And I think also just kind of being like a lone wolf. I've always kind of preferred to be by myself. And it was actually I think a video at the end of Demon in My Mind that actually there's like a Joker quote, which I don't think is
Mm-hmm.
the Joker, but it's set up as it is. That I watched, and basically that video was just saying like, those times when you're just by yourself in complete silence, for a lot of people are scary,
Hmm.
but if you can learn to embrace those times, there's nothing you can't do, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
how do I take that and kind of weave it into the quote unquote forgotten last piece to this saga? So it was that was kind of interesting to kind of try and connect those two. And actually, I remember when I first wrote Demon in My Mind, I was actually originally I wanted to read it kind of like as the Joker, so that really slow, kind of quiet
Yeah.
cadence.
Yeah.
And then I figured when I was shooting it, I was like, I did a couple takes like that, and I was like, this doesn't necessarily feel right. Like it feels like I want to be more
Right. Needed
Mm-hmm.
to ramp it up a
aggressive.
bit.
Like, yeah, a bit more aggressive, I guess.
Yeah, because it hit hard, and if it's at the end of like the series to make that exclamation mark when you put on the mask to kind of finish that you've like finally taken control of your inner thoughts and all that. It is a powerful
Absolutely.
time when you finally can be by yourself and address all those things inside. That's when you become a great artist as well.
Mm-hmm.
So we want to talk about your life and your current thoughts, what's going on right now. We have recently done two moves since we've started our channel, and we heard that you recently just made a big move, like you said. Hopefully, it went well. And did that shift in your physical space affect your creativity or mental health?
I think my mental health, I think for definitely for the better. I'm with my dogs
Awesome.
now, whereas before I was in an apartment. I was living with
Ooh,
with a roommate, but my dogs were like 2.5 hours away from me.
that's tough.
That's really tough,
So
but
now
No,
I
I'm with
have
you.
Yeah, so now I have them jumping on me and yelling at me.
amazing.
Aw, that's
It's
great
what
to
you
hear.
need for your mental
Look at that
health, is to be
smile.
near your
Yep.
fur babies.
Good. Yeah, because also happy Father's Day. I don't know if you're a father to like your own kids or anything, but you are a father to your fur
Fur
babies.
babies.
Yep.
You take care of them because you're your babies. Going into this, so before you mentioned that you had a special announcement for your fans. Do
Yeah.
we get the exclusive?
Yeah.
Cool.
So
Ooh.
I'm still working on a title. But I guess tentatively what I'm gonna start calling Wolf Talk. So
Wolf
basically I'm
Talks.
gonna take two or three of my pieces, maybe four if they're shorter, and I'm gonna recite them. And then I'm gonna do a deep dive on them, talk about,
Smart.
Very
why I wrote it,
cool.
my inspiration for the video, why I did or didn't use certain writing technique. Um,
Real behind the scenes.
yeah, and kind of break them down. Now, this is something that I've done prior, but I've never done it in a video format.
Right. A real
Hmm.
So
series.
obviously, you can see my new mic. I got a new laptop for podcasting.
Oh,
Very
good for you.
cool.
It's a
Good
Starting
for
to
great
you.
mic.
Yeah, starting to so starting that. I've already thought one. I have another one uh band written. I have to shoot. Yeah, so I'm gonna start. I'm thinking I'm gonna start releasing these on Wednesdays,
Nice. Okay.
maybe next week or this week.
Nice
Very
reoccurring stuff.
cool.
That's smart.
Reoccurring. I love that. Do you utilize any other social medias for your, other than YouTube, for your fan base?
Facebook, so Facebook would be my main one. Again,
Okay.
just Lone Wolf Poetics. I do have Instagram. This one is
Yeah.
kind of complicated.
Fair enough.
So the Instagram is at lone underscore wolf underscore poetics underscore.
Right. Yeah. All
Right.
those underscores.
And Blue Sky actually, which
Okay, I
is
haven't heard of Blue
Blue
Sky.
Sky. What's Blue Sky?
it's basically Twitter without all the political propaganda.
Nice.
Like
Oh,
Nice.
a
that
new
sounds awesome.
like a new Twitter.
New
And
Twitter. I
that
like
one
it. Blue
is
sky.
at lonewolfpoetics.bsk.social.
Sweet.
Dot bsk
We'll
dot
put all
social.
your socials in like the description and all that too. And we are now on to kind of the last segment, and this is a little fun one. So now for a bit of fun. We know you're into the WWE.
Love it.
What are
Yep.
your thoughts on the current state of the WWE scene?
Honestly, I haven't actually really watched it for a long time.
That's
There
good.
was especially this last year living in the apartment, I didn't have cable.
Oh,
Fair
okay.
enough.
Yeah, fair enough.
So it's kind of been out of it a little bit, trying to catch things here and there. I definitely think it's getting better. Now I know, yeah, I think for a long time it was kind of going down and now it's kind
I
of starting
agree.
to go back up a little bit more.
Getting
Um,
more of a fan base now that's on Netflix.
yeah, but I think just like the storylines and everything has gotten better now. I
I
know a lot
agree.
of my
Mhm.
favorite wrestlers are getting towards the end of their careers, if not retired. Retired, I was always in that attitude era
Right. The
Mhm.
Rock and
and
Stone Cold, Undertaker.
yeah, those guys. So
Did you like Eddie Guerrero and Benoit?
I did, yeah.
I know when they passed away, that stopped me watching WWE for a while. It was a hard time for me.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, before we wrap up, we've seen other reaction channels, sorry, like Old School Nerd feature your
Mhm.
work. How does it feel having reactors respond so deeply to what you're putting out into the world?
I mean, especially old school nerd, Tora reacts as well.
Awesome. Shout
Um,
out to her.
but especially, yeah, look, old school nerd has been just amazing. I was super scared, uh, when I first reached out to him. It was actually one of my poems about my ADHD.
Oh,
And it
Okay.
was a topic that so the part of ADHD that I was talking about in that video was, masking.
Mm-hmm.
Nervous just to like, because I'm so different from like what everyone's used to.
fair enough. Yeah.
And then plus it being one of those like the ADHD poems, plus the masking, which is so straight up, it can be lethal with
Yeah.
mental health.
Yeah.
Reaching out to, yeah, his reaction, that whole community has just been amazing with me. To the point where like if I don't, he does a up and coming stream, so it's under 10,000 subs on YouTube every Saturday.
Oh, cool.
Very
I
cool.
didn't know he did
To the
that.
point where like if I don't have a video for like a Saturday stream, it's like why?
Right.
Like we want more, which
That's
is
amazing,
awesome.
man.
But yeah, so definitely it's
Amazing.
kept me going for sure.
That's incredible. I really love the reaction channel community because they actually help each other out and they bring
Mm-hmm.
in people that aren't necessarily in the reaction channels, but are it's just music. It's just the music community
And the
itself
story
really
that's coming
flourishes.
through, because the story that's coming through is just so powerful as well. Like with your spoken word, it lyrically the spoke the or with the prose. I'm sorry, I don't know the correct terminology, but it is so powerful to be able to experience it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So we want to kind of wrap this up because we have some stuff to go on today with Father's Day and all that. This
Hmm.
has already been going handsomely smoothly. I think it's almost been 50 minutes already, so that's incredible. We have a lot of good stuff on here. And now for our outro, Lone Wolf Poetics. Thank you so much for sharing your time, your truth, and your talent with us today. This has been an eye opener and honestly a heart stretcher.
We've had a great time here with you. Everyone watching, if you haven't yet, go support Lone Wolf Poetics on YouTube and all of his other social medias. We have all the links in the comments down below.
And definitely drop a comment letting us know which piece of this hit you the hardest or made you think differently. And Lone Wolf, you're always welcome here at Enter the Chronic, and much love to you, brother.
Thank you. And remember, there's no right time to write. So write right now.
Ooh,
Ooh,
that's a
I like
great
that's a great saying.
right now, because that is something else we could have asked is like a little piece of inspiration. And I think that's a great idea to even have at the end of an interview is look for someone's inspiration. thank you so much for being such a good community member with us. Like you're so active on Patreon, and thank you for being so flexible as well. And
Yep, not a problem.
we'd love to keep checking out your stuff too. So anytime there's one that you want us to look into, please keep sending them our way.
I think my next one is actually going to be on the 20th.
The
Yeah,
20th.
Nice.
Very cool.
Right
and
on
It's
it's
our
then.
actually
son's
the
birthday.
femicide video.
The
Nice.
So
Oh,
femicide
just
one.
walking.
Very cool.
Perfect then. Well, thank you so much, Tanner.
yep,
And you have a good day, and we'll see you soon again.
right.
See you
Take
again.
care.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Take
Did he have a
care.
good
Bye.
time?
Yep.
Awesome then,
Awesome.
man. Okay, take care. Eh?
Bye.
Bye.